All right. Welcome, everyone, to our Thursday, February 12th, 2026 meeting of the Houston chapter of the Electric Vehicle Association. And welcome everybody here at Rice University, all these great students and all their activities. We're going to hear a little bit about that tonight. So that's a real exciting thing. We always want to expand and include more people. And welcome to the people online. Folks online can ask questions when they want to. And so we'll go through a few slides here just to talk about the chapter. And so on the past events, the Iona charging station, it's having its second anniversary.
Yeah, basically, they gave away free charging for a day. And so we showed up just to, and got 8 people as possible members. So.
Oh, that was productive last time. Hopefully we'll get some more this time too. Okay. So we have our JSC EV Enthusiast Club, JVEC lunch. It's late this month, the 27th, Friday the 27th, starting around 11:30 or whatever time you want to make it. That's to catch people down on the south side of the Houston metro area. It's right on the League City Dickinson line, as you can see there on FM 646. And very casual. We don't have any kind of speakers, but people often bring questions and experiences and things like that. So if you feel like getting down to that side of town, that's good. And for folks more on the west or southwest side of town, we're going to have our Batteries and Brews coming up on Sunday, February 22nd, starting around 1 p.m. Again, very casual. Folks like to just chat about all kinds of things. So we try to spread around the city as much as we can. And this year, we have the Art Car Parade, April 9th through the 12th. And our Vice President, David Lowy, is going to be putting his car in, and he's encouraging other folks to put theirs in. He's going to talk a little bit in here tonight's meeting. And here, the Career Day, March 19th, Destination Success.
That's a Spring Branch ISD event, and basically we'll show up and do EVs and solar if we can put it together.
Good, yeah.
Just so the kids know there's careers there.
Exactly, yeah, get them young. Yep.
And sign-up sheets over there for anybody who's ever done these and has ideas, or, how do you engage students? I need all the help I can get, so, yeah.
And April's Earth Month, and of course, we'd like all the activities that go on with that. And so we'd like, as in past years, to have members who would like to volunteer to come out and be next to their cars. You can either have it open or locked, however you feel comfortable. But folks coming by love asking real EV owners because, of course, they get an entirely different experience than if they go to a car dealership. So that's why we value that.
Sign-up sheet over there.
And there's a sign-up sheet for that. And of course, there's a lot of benefits by joining the national organization. Encourage everybody to do that. Just costs a little bit per year. It's not required. There's no dues for our chapter, but our chapter does benefit by folks signing up for the national. And of course, that gives us stronger voice nationwide and across Canada. And we have some information here in the room. It ages quickly, so these one sheets, we encourage folks, if you have some neighbors maybe that have been asking about EVs or something, take some of those sheets. You can hand them out to friends and neighbors. And we have the comic book. That's also fun. That's a stylized way of doing things, yeah. So here, again, some opportunities all pulled together. And of course, you have any ideas, got a way to advocate for EVs,
Especially these younger people, they may like to do something, at a bar. Who knows?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it not advancing?
And
we also have an admit to the online as well there. Couple of them. Yeah. Okay. And there's always, of course, interesting things online. And so Facebook is one other place that you can post things that you find interesting going on related to EVs in Houston or anywhere that you'd like to share with folks. Okay, and of course, there's our link there. And near the bottom there, you see info at houstontxev.org. So in order to try to get our emails to go out to people and not end up in junk folders, we've created this email address. So if you think you're not getting them, I know that's always a hard thing to determine. You might whitelist this email address because the MailChimp service is going to be sending it from this email address now. So this is kind of a recent change. And I know some people have, including myself, had not gotten them until we took some action to make sure they're coming through. So welcome. You can sign in if you like, and we'll continue on. Does that cover all of our startup PowerPoint? All right. Well, good then. So we're going to have a few speakers and a couple of comments from a couple of other folks here real quick. So before we get to BK talking about charging in South Korea and Omar talking about all of his adventures with EVs and charging, David, if you'd like to come on down and tell us about your adventures.
I want to thank everybody for inviting us in here. This is an ideal space for a meeting. We'd been way out east on navigation, difficult to find. Even though I'd been there numerous times, I would still get lost. So it would be really great if we continue this partnership and expand our membership and learn from you, and hope you learn something from us. What we have to share is the amount of experience we have driving electric vehicles. I've been driving all electric for 12 years. Dave has been driving electric, it seems, forever. Colin as well, and Kevin, our secretary, Colin, our treasurer. Huh? Oh, well, keep it up. Or maybe buy 2 cars and then you can, oh, you got 3.
I'm secretly hoping for a student coup, and they'll just take over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colin says he's hoping the students will take over and relieve us a lot of this technical responsibility. But Dave mentioned my adventures. So back in October, I had the opportunity to fly an electric vehicle. This is a company called Lift Aircraft, and they're looking at the future of electric transportation for short trips, autonomously driven multi-copter vehicles that you can fly now. If you go up to Austin and plunk down $200, they'll let you fly it for about 3 minutes after putting you in a simulator. But they're hoping to make these flights more affordable, so it'll be more like the iFly experience, maybe $49 a flight, and eventually provide these vehicles worldwide for autonomous flight for short transportation. That's already happening in the world in various places. I've heard that in China and the Middle East, there are already autonomous flying taxis. So let me show you what I did, if I can find it. Now, let's see. Okay. Share my screen.
And the screen is
Yeah, we
great.
can see the screen good from here.
We can see it fine from here. It's not that, it's not washed out. That's a good projector.
So that was a lot of fun. I compare that, well, I was piloting, as they said, with the joystick, but that was downtown Austin. They have a small field right in the middle of everything. People look up at you and they're waving and shouting and stopping cars. So it's a good experience, and several of us have done that. And if you invest in the company, they'll give you more free rides, which is I'm waiting to do. They're starting up again this month. But I also had the opportunity to ride in a Waymo in Austin, one of the driverless taxis. Best ride of my life. I've been driving for almost 57 years. That ride was better than my driving. So it's nothing to be afraid of. Most people say, well, maybe after I've had a bottle of wine, I might try it. But it's really great. A smooth ride, comes to a swift stop when it gets to your destination, and greets you when you get in. Hi, David, have a seat. Don't touch the steering wheel. You look over and the driver's seat belts are fastened for some reason. They say, enjoy the radio, don't worry about it. It was in Austin, so it took me to the state capitol where there was one of the many protests going on there. But the car just pulls over into a convenient place and says, thank you for riding. Have a nice day today. Be careful getting out. So it's a great experience. But now I'm going to share with you. Find it. Okay. So recently, oh, I know what. Can you see that? Okay. This is our new home. We've lived here about 7 months now. We were refugees from Hurricane Harvey in 2017. We lost our home in Meyerland, and since we sold the property, and other people have built a 2-story, way off the ground house, even though there hasn't been that significant flood as much lately with all the carving out of the bayou that they're doing. It seems to have helped. We've had some heavy rains without as much buildup, at least in the Meyerland area. But we rented for the last 8 years, went back to our old neighborhood of Meyerland. And now we're in Northwest Houston near Oak Forest. As soon as my wife walked in this house that I saw was available, I wasn't that interested really, but she walked in and said, we're buying this, because she loved it, and she still does. And I'm starting to like it more, because you'll notice on the roof, we've got solar panels now. This just happened in the last couple of months, and it's been quite an adventure getting that, everything you have to go through. And we were taking our chance on a realtor that, not a realtor, but a contractor that we hadn't met before, but that a former president of our group recommended very highly to us. A PhD in electrical engineering from A&M University, and just fully involved with equipping Houston and the rest of the world with solar. He's going to Mexico this week to install solar there. And He reports he's going to Colombia later in the year to install solar there. He's working on a 220 panel project in Colombia. And he says that the United States is pitifully behind the rest of the world. He travels internationally 4 times a year. He says it's like night and day. And we all have our suspicions about why this is happening. But he said the rest of the world is embracing solar, embracing EVs like you wouldn't believe. I mean, they'll put them vertically on fences and on the sides of houses for panels. But we will catch up, because I used to keep track of how many electric vehicles I would see in the course of a week when we were doing our radio program on KPFT for 6 months last year. And I would get up to over 200 vehicles routinely, my wife and I using a clicker every time we saw one. She had a harder time recognizing some of them than I did, but I'd say, oh, there's a Mustang, there's a Lightning, how do you do this? But it's impressive how many cars are on the road already in this area, and how many varieties of cars. It's not all Teslas anymore. And you see some very interesting brands. I've seen a Vietnamese EV on the street. I've seen all kinds. So it's happening here. So that's our home, and this is what's running our home. I have never felt as attached or as much like a planetary citizen as when we started powering our home and our car from the sun. Of course, I enjoy going out in the backyard and getting the direct effect on a cool day. It's wonderful, the difference between standing in the shade and sitting in the sun and having breakfast. But I never imagined that I would be as excited as I was about making improvement to a home. The downside was dealing with the physical aspects and the bureaucratic aspects of getting it done. City permitting, contractor who doesn't return calls, but who did a very professional job and gave us excellent equipment. But one of our adventures in this case was there was no way the people installing our new heavy $9 a foot copper wiring to our breaker box would have predicted that a screw in the 17-year-old breaker box would penetrate the wiring and then cause a huge pop at one point. Of course, all the systems are designed to shut down so that you're not going to burn your house down. But he was puzzled and nervous, running around trying to figure this out. Finally went to the breaker. There's a puff of ashen stuff on the wall, and you look in there, and indeed the insulation had been melting on one of the heavy wires. So they got busy and corrected that and made sure it wouldn't happen again. Yes, yes. Yeah, but he assured us, and we believe him so far, that we're all right. What is this sound? Is it raining? What was that? What brand of? Oh, the inverter was a Solarc, and our contractor says this is the best inverter made in the world. So we trust him, and it cost enough that it should be. And the panels are V-Sun. I think they're made in Vietnam. We put up 13.2, so there are 30 panels and two storage batteries that are the equivalent of 32 kilowatt hours. So we're covered. Yeah, yeah. And we'll, yeah. Yeah, we're looking to get free nights and so forth, but at this time of year, we can turn the grid off and we're fine all the way through morning. If we're charging the car actively, that changes things. The other day we shut down for no known reason. It wasn't a problem like before, but we had run it down below 20% and it was set to shut down at 10%. A lot of stuff was happening. Our contractor said, well, this was the perfect storm of things to be doing for this to happen. But Now he sets it at 5% before it will shut down. So here's our little planet circling this life-giving sun. It's wonderful. Is Pluto in there? I don't think so. I still want Pluto. I'm used to it. Yeah. Not everyone likes the sun. Not everyone wants to try this because I say, oh, I'm too old. It won't pay for itself. I'm too old. You know, it might pay for itself by the time I'm 82 or 87, but we still want it because it's good for the environment. It makes us feel good in some mysterious way. I feel like the energy we get directly from the sun is more pure and feels better in our house than just getting it from the grid. But Colin has reminded me that 120 is 120. Yeah. But this is the kind of screen we see on our app that is in motion when you look at it. At this point, the battery was down to 57%, and I can't tell which direction it's going, but it's going out because it was nighttime. We were getting the equivalent of a 20-watt light bulb coming in from the grid. Every now and then that happens. And even though ours isn't set to export energy yet, every now and then it sends some to the grid. It has too much. And I think that's it. It has been an adventure, but it's thrilling to my wife and I, and it's just amazing that this is possible. I feel energized by it. And then the other thing that I'm going to show you is just a little bit. I have a poster up there with a QR code about the art car parade. Let me go back here. And I'm going to pass these two posters out to you. There's a QR code on there that takes you directly to the entry form. You have until the 20th of February to submit an entry. It's a great team exercise. As many people as can fit in your car can do so on just one entry fee. The entry fee is $50, and it's a chance to be very creative and join a good group of people who do this now for the 39th year. And there's nothing quite like being in a parade, riding down the middle of the street at 2 miles an hour with hundreds of thousands of people on either side of you interested in what you're doing and having a great time. So this is one of the entries from before. It doesn't look much like a car, but he won first place that year. There are a number of activities besides just the parade. It goes from Thursday through Sunday. Thursday, they have a preview night at Discovery Green. Then Friday, they have the art car ball in the evening, and every entry gets 2 tickets to that. It's a big event, and a lot of the cars will be displayed there. Then on Saturday, there's the parade, and on Sunday, there's a party for recognizing everybody's achievements, just getting together at an art installation called the Orange Show and park next to it. All of this benefits the Orange Show, and they'll be giving out trophies and cash awards to the winners of the judging. So there's you have to be kind of patient if you enter the parade, because they start lining everybody up at 11 a.m. The parade doesn't start till 2, and they do the judging during that time. So,
and you figured out a way to do this without damaging your vehicle.
Well, the way I'm doing it this year, and you're going to see my car in a minute. That's not this one. This is a friend's car, the purple People Eater. Elizabeth, right? She uses her car as a daily driver. She drives it everywhere. She's had very few complaints about it. Most people praise it, but she runs into someone now and then, or one person over the years who said, "What are you doing?" She also runs a junkyard and has sold. Yeah. Yeah. So Colin was mentioning that, well, this is me in my mayor's outfit. I ran for mayor a couple of times in my life, when I was 27 and when I was 70 years old. So that's 42 years separation. The next time I run, I'll be about 112. But my first time around, I got 144 votes. when I was 27. When I was 70, I got 366 votes. So I could get up over 700 when I'm 100 years old. But this is what I'm going to do with my car. Colin said I found a way to do it without messing it up. Some adhesives will stick to your car. This car, which I've been driving for almost 6 years, the panels are not, you know, they're not magnetic. You can't stick magnetic signs to this car. I don't really know what they're made of. I don't, aluminum? Okay. Yeah, so I had to come up with another way. Last year I worked in an ad campaign where they had 7 or 8 or 12 electric vehicles representing an energy company, and they wrapped our cars. So I'm going to make my artwork, some classic artwork, some modern ones, even one by my mom, that one of the house there between Van Gogh and Rembrandt. And I'm going to go to one of these wrap companies and have the files transferred into wraps so that they will be easy to remove, because the wrap company doesn't have a hard time. I had some that left adhesive. And so that's going to be it. And thanks for listening to me. And I'll pass these posters around. Anybody want to click the QR code? Don't be afraid of it. If you push, enter or whatever, it'll just show you all the information about the parade and the events that come up with it. So thanks for coming. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And stop your share, please.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. This is great information. And for those that didn't catch at the beginning, David Lowy is our vice president now. And it was nice he was mentioning the international aspect of things. And our previous vice president, Robert Sanchez, pointed out the other day in an email how Norway has gone basically 100% EVs. I mean, basically all the vehicles sold in the last year were EVs because people there have smartened up. So, all right. So, Sebastian, if you want to come on down. We'd love hearing about what students are doing all over, especially the ones here at Rice. So we know you have your club, the Rev Club, Rice EVs. All right, go to it.
Hi guys, give me 1 second to get set up. Yeah, let me just put that in.
So what folks in the room are asking about for those online are his energy plan. He's on Spark. He hasn't gone to a free nights yet, but he's probably going to. So 8 to 6 or 9 to 9 are what people in the room have for their free nights. Good.
Yeah.
All right, go to it, Sebastian.
Yeah, well, my solar stock producing around what, like 5:30? It starts to taper off around the 3. Oh yeah, taper off, yeah. By 6 o'clock, I'm on the battery completely. Right. And then I have to wait till 9. I've not gotten down past 70%. I have a 10 kilowatt hour battery. But of course, I'm not running AC right now. Right, so, yeah, I mean, I have, yeah, so this time of year,
All good?
this time of year at 9 o'clock, they on. Now.
All right. Thank you guys for being here today. We are very excited to be hosting the Electric Vehicle Association's Houston chapter today. And thank you to everyone from the Electric Vehicle Association. And we'd like to honor you as honorary members of the Rice Electric Vehicle team. So we shared a little bit about our car at your last meeting. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about what it's like to be on the team and then show you the car downstairs. So if you've missed it, we're the Rice Electric Vehicle team. We're a brand new undergraduate interdisciplinary project team. We're competing in a competition called the American Solar Challenge in July 2026, and we're one of 7 first-time teams in this competition. It's rapidly expanding. We're a racing student, or we're a racing team that races a fully student-designed car against the 46 other teams that will be at this competition. And we're taking on this project to hopefully make an impact in the rice community and on the global stage, trying out new technologies and kind of forwarding the state of the art in all of these different fields that solar racing involves. So with that said, the solar racing competition definitely encourages a lot of advancements in things that align with the EV industry. So efficiency, different battery chemistries and technology, as well as the different materials you can make an EV out of. Ours specifically uses a lot of composites, which are um, a very like interesting part of different modern fields right now. And the technologies we use have applications in a lot of different performance EVs. So they can either make vehicles more efficient, as we've seen with Aptera fully solar powered vehicles, even cheaper commercial solar vehicles, or just cheaper EVs in general using different battery chemistries like lithium iron phosphate, or more advanced EVs that have better performance, better power output, and that maybe use silicon anode technology like we use in our battery pack. So about the American Solar Challenge, it's actually two different competitions put together. The first is an endurance race on track. So this picture was taken at Circuit of the Americas, and this summer it'll be at Brainerd International Raceway. So fully on track, just like a real race car would be, but entirely electric and solar powered. The second part is a cross-country sprint. So in the past, it was usually somewhere in the north. They're thinking about including some parts of Route 66 in this year's competition, so it'll be an exciting race. And they drive them on public roads from one city to the other. If you've ever heard of cannonball racing or things like that, it's very similar in that the idea is just to get from one city to the other as quickly as possible. And that has you interact with a lot of like traffic stops, stoplights, stop and go traffic, just like a normal car would, except in your entirely student-built vehicles. And for those of you that are new to the idea of solar racing, here's a team. Here's something a friend on a different team shared online. This is the Purdue Solar team in 2024 racing on track. So this is pretty similar to what we'll be doing with our car in just a second. Once we get our battery pack and drivetrain finished. And then they'll be coming up on some other cars shortly, but just so you can get an idea that these are pretty capable and pretty in-depth projects that take a lot of planning and effort to put on. We've actually been working on ours for over 2 years of planning has gone into ours. And it's very interdisciplinary, taking engineers, strategists, business students. Everyone kind of has a part to play in making an entire race team come together. And especially in college, when they bring in these race circuits with different turns and complex things like that, they're really fun to drive as well. So you'll see in a second, they start catching up to some other teams and having to do overtakes. For time, I'll save this video with you later, but we can feel free to come back to that. So as an honorary member of the team, we'd like to invite you through the process of how we came up with our design and what we plan to do with this competition for Rice's first ever year in the American Solar Challenge. So you can see on the bottom, that's the car that is downstairs right now. That's what we'll be competing with in the summer. For reference, in the middle, we have a Tesla Model 3 Performance. And then up in the top, we have a top team from Belgium that will be competing in the American Challenge this year. So just kind of the state-of-the-art, bigger cars that we'll be doing our best to catch up to with our new car. So one of my favorite things about this competition is all the different designs and layouts and strategies you can implement. The kind of new trend right now are these large 6-meter squared solar array cars. They're significantly larger than our car. They're bigger than a lot of commercial vehicles as well. They're actually designed for the international competition. So a lot of top American teams like the University of Michigan will design their cars to this sort of specification. You can see some of them only have 3 wheels and things like that. They also, the kind of gimmick from the International Challenge is the sail on top of the car. So that's an airfoil shape that in Australia, where the international competition is, the winds are high enough that that actually propels your car forward just a little bit. So that's how you can tell, that's how you can instantly recognize all the cars that were designed for the international competition. These cars especially have the huge solar arrays, so they're a bit heavier, but they have much more energy to work with because of that solar array. Then we have some American teams we'll be competing against. Um, a recent trend that kind of started in the 2020s are these monohull or bullet-shaped cars. They're very small, light, and aerodynamic. They're super efficient, and they do extremely well in those cross-country races because just driving straight on the road, especially even if you encounter things like heavy wind, their aerodynamic shape makes them very efficient there. They're just a little bit small and awkward to drive. So we are going with what's called a catamaran design. It's split into the two halves that you see in the photos here and on our car downstairs. They're small and light, just like the Bullet cars. A little bit less aerodynamic, but with four wheels, just like a normal car. They do really well on tracks and things with turns. And our solar cars all come with a battery, so whenever there's not much sun, the extra weight savings we have mean we can use our battery energy to go further. So as conditions change in the track, we'll be kind of strategizing to how much energy we have available and hoping our more traditional car layout will help us do well in the track. And then, of course, an honorable mention to the multi-occupant vehicles. For the teams that have been established for a while and have the budget to attempt more larger cars, there's this separate category that gives you bonus points for putting extra occupants in your car. You can see there's lots of different shapes to them as well. Georgia Tech has a 4-person car. There's a 2-person car on the right from Appalachian State. They're pretty much the same thing you would see in a commercial electric vehicle if they were able to mass produce things like that. So they have, the rules require them to have trunks and storage space and things like that. Just imagine a commercial vehicle, but still with a roll cage and all the stuff you would need to race on the track as well. So our plan, as a first-time team, we're targeting the track race first. It's the design advantage of our catamaran design. It's a controlled environment where we'll be able to collect a whole bunch of data and learn from it as quickly as possible. And most of the top teams focus on the cross-country race, the city-to-city race. So we think by designing our car for this track race, we are positioned to do pretty well, especially compared to all those larger cars that kind of rely on having lots of solar energy and a really straight line to drive on. Our goal is to be the best of the new American teams, so we might not beat the fancy $1 million car from Belgium and the Dutch teams, but of the 5 new American teams, we hope to be some of the best. Definitely learn as much as possible. This is a big learning experience for Rice. I don't think Rice has ever undertook a project like this, so we'll be coming back with lots of experience on how to do things like carbon fiber design, our entire custom and self-built battery pack, working with power electronics and motors, all kinds of engineering experience there. Due to logistical reasons and cost, we probably won't be competing in the cross-country event, but instead shadowing another team. So we'll be going along with them in their support vehicles, helping them work on their car and networking to figure out how we can make our car even better for next year. So introducing our car, you've seen how it's currently going downstairs, but it's a solar-powered carbon fiber chassis. It'll have a top speed targeting around 80 miles per hour, but definitely in the 70s. And it has its own custom-built 5 kilowatt-hour battery pack. So here's a little bit of the dimensions, as I mentioned earlier. It's a catamaran design, meaning the driver and all of the ballast and the equipment the driver has with them, water, radios, everything go in the left side, and all of the high voltage components go in the right side of the car. And that gives it a nice 50-50 weight distribution as 4 wheels, just like a normal car would. And so it doesn't have any weak points in terms of driving on track or anything like that. And it's fairly intuitive to drive. So for a lot of our first-time drivers, it'll be a fun experience. Here's the construction of that chassis. It starts with a bunch of fiberglass molds, then you do some layups of carbon fiber in it. Then you take the carbon fiber out of the mold and cover it in white paint. And then what we're doing this semester, we've brought it all on campus to Rice University, and we're just assembling it with the different drivetrain, suspension, battery components, and of course, as the solar array installed on top as well. So our car, part of why we expect to be one of the best new teams is we have a lot of investment into high performance parts. So carbon fiber chassis is pretty much the state of the art in student competitions. Usually you start with a steel or something similar, but we have some experience in that area, so we moved straight to a carbon fiber chassis. We have a very efficient custom hub motor, so it's a 98.3% efficiency. And together with an inverter or a motor controller that's 99.8% efficient, a huge amount of the energy from the battery goes straight to driving the wheels. It has a 12 kilowatt output, which is around 16 or 17 horsepower, but in a car that only weighs 500 something pounds, that goes very far. And then what we're working on right now is a silicon anode battery pack. So like a typical lithium ion chemistry, just replacing some of the anode with a mixture of silicon to give it more energy density. Our energy density is close to 300 watt hours per kilogram, which is almost 20 or 30% more than what you would see in just a typical high performance lithium ion cell from like Samsung or Molicel, any of the big names like that. And we get very close to the maximum allowed capacity of 5.25 kilowatt hours. And it takes, essentially we take 364 18650 cells and combine them into the pack you see in the bottom right there to build our fully custom pack. So to make it happen, there's a couple things we're working on this semester. We're working on fabricating that battery pack. We're working on acquiring a motor controller. And then we also are making custom wheels for our car. There's a lot of really specific requirements that go into that. So we're looking for some places that can machine it. And then the entire thing is controlled with 3 custom designed PCBs. So one that controls all the driver's controls, one that manages the turn signals and all the low voltage, and then one that manages the battery. And we're also working on putting together some final logistics pieces. So we'll need a competition support vehicle and trailer. You can see there in the top right, that was actually me and my high school convoy. So essentially you have your chase vehicle that has a trailer on it, and then your scout vehicle that's going out in front, watching everything, and reporting the conditions to you. This is in July, so July 2026. So we're hoping to have it finished by the end of the summer then. And then we're looking to make some industry partners and community partners for next year. That way we can build our car here in Houston for the next car, as well as build some upgrades here next year. And then we're fundraising to pay for some legal, insurance, and competition fees. So as a car, it has to have both automotive and liability insurance for this competition. Then we're working to get through some legal fees with paperwork. We might be establishing our own 501c3 nonprofit. So we might become our own organization just to help handle with those. And that way we can sign some contracts with some industry partners to test with. A lot of the parts we use are prototypes for what will become parts of commercial vehicles later. For instance, the tire compound is called the Bridgestone Ecopia, and you might recognize that if you drive certain EVs or a Toyota Prius. That's the tire compound they end up using in the commercial car later once it's been tested in student competitions like this. And same thing with our battery pack. It's from the cells themselves, the 18650s, are from a startup called Amprius in California. And so giving them a lot of testing data is really important. The kind of weakness of silicon anode cells right now is their cycle life. They're trying to figure out ways to make them last longer. And so putting it in a high stress situation like this is a great way to get more data for companies like that to go and improve their product. And then so coming soon, we're hoping to have a livery on the car and be able to unveil it in April. So we'd love for you guys to attend that as well. And then in July is the competition that we'll be competing in. We'll be racing the same chassis again next year, but now with some experience, we hope to bring some upgrades to it. So we hope to build a new battery pack again with the improvements we kind of learned from this design process, especially using 21700 cells, which are a larger cell that is more common in newer EV battery packs. Instead of just buying our custom motor controller like we plan to now, we're looking into making our own. It's a very technically intense process, but with lots of new chemistries like gallium nitride, there's lots of room for improvement even on that motor controller. And then we'll also be making more composite structures just like last time, and incorporating the Bridgestone tire compound into our design. And of course, whatever we learn from the competition, we'll take it back into the design process and improve the car with upgrades there. So this is what we hope to unveil sometime soon. This is a recent unveiling event from the Brunel Solar Car team in Belgium that will be bringing their car to America soon. And if you guys are more artistically minded, we're trying to decide what we want our livery to look like. So our initial concept on the left over there, just a standard blue and white rice design. But then we visited some other teams and realized that blue and white is pretty common as far as it goes for university teams. And so we came up with this AI generated for now, but more Houston-inspired light blue and red design. So we're hoping to carry this kind of like red and light blue aesthetic to differentiate us a little bit, and maybe parts of the Texas flag on there. We'll see. So yeah, that was just a quick overview. Yeah.
Well, I know that the bubble where the driver's head is located, casts a shadow.
Yes.
And I'm wondering about how you deal with, or whether it's consideration, the output current goes very low. Panels are illuminated.
Yes. So the rules of the competition limit us to only, at the time it was 4 square meters of array. So all of the array is outside of where the shadow would have been cast anyway. But that is a really good point though, because whenever one solar cell sees a drop in electricity, they're all the ones that are connected in series would be affected by that. So that's definitely something very important we consider in our design as well. Any other questions?
The idea of, instead of having a visual site, having cameras to have your situational awareness, so that you can make the car more aerodynamic, you would have to have the bubble. Have you ever heard anybody talk about something like that?
So if you look at the cars from the 90s, they used to be like very much like you're laying down flat and just kind of peering through the top. For safety reasons, they mandate the driver has to sit up that much. So that's why the cars now look like this kind of bubble shape. If you look in just people setting Guinness World Records for efficiency, a lot of them do have camera systems instead. And we have a camera for our rear view mirror instead. So part of the experimental vehicles are allowed to have cameras for the rear view mirrors instead of the physical things. So that's something we implement. But in terms of, since the driver already has to be sitting pretty straight up, the bubble canopy kind of makes sense. Yeah. So also part of the rule from teams that weren't doing it very well in the past is you have to have a certain amount of airflow into the cockpit. So when you go down and see our car, you'll see at the very front of that bubble canopy, there's a little cutout. So airflow's in there, and then there's also fans. Same thing applies to the battery pack as well. The battery pack actually gets more air than the driver. So yeah, they also have like a water bottle that'll be cooled. And when I used to drive my other car, we wear like, forget what it's called, but like a cooling vest or something like that. And just change it out when you do your driver changes. Yeah, we're really glad to have you guys. And so we have we presented last time. We have the slides from that for anyone that's curious. And then we hope to present more in-depth presentations about our battery pack and about our car in the next couple months. And then we have the car downstairs for you guys to check out as well. And we'll answer any questions you guys have there as well. Yeah, thank you guys for being here.
Yes, Sebastian mentioned the car is available downstairs. So after we finish the meeting and log off, we encourage everybody to go down there and interact with all the students because they're full of excitement. Yeah. All right. So BK, ready to talk? This will be exciting to hear about the charging activities that you've been working on so much in South Korea.
Does you want to try it?
First case to sit forward.
All right. Hi, my name is BK, and I'm from Korea, and then I'm working at retail electricity. You'd like to be
Yeah, use the mic.
All right. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, currently I'm working at retail electricity provider called Chariot Energy, and it's just like a TXU or Reliant or something like that. So some of the guys are talking about a free night plan or something. I'm very familiar with this kind of retail product. And then in Korea, I used to run charging point operating businesses, just like EVgo or something like that. So my team built like almost 14,000 charging spots in Korea, and the company supported almost like a 20 million US dollar for these like businesses. But unfortunately, last year or the year before last year, the EV adoption was really slowed down, and then the company want to kept their back by selling that infrastructures. So unfortunately, we closed the business, and then the company sent me to USA to expand the kind of retail electricity business in Texas. So I would like to share kind of my experience back in Korea, and I actually compared that market characteristics in Korea with Texas situation. So let me start. So to briefly introduce my background, I was born in Korea, and then I majored in electronics engineering, and then I went to Germany, Berlin, and then to do my master course there. So there I studied a kind of interdisciplinary renewable energy courses. So I decided to work in this kind of renewable energy industries. So I have quite many experience in solar and wind and energy storage system. You guys are talking about this on the residential side. Also had an experience of EV and EV charging businesses more than 3 years. So in 2022, I didn't I was it was not a kind of my company. The company that I'm working at kind of decided to build a team for charge point business. So in 2022, we founded a dedicated EV charging business team under a company model, because at that time the company was planning to spin off this business and then they were trying to try that IPO stuff, something like that in the beginning. So we launched the CPO brand, the Hanwha Motif, because the name is Hanwha. So it's just operating like a startup within the organization. So we did kind of end-to-end functions, everything, including branding, sales, installation, and software platform development, and payment development, and operations and marketing for 3 years through 2025. So we operate approximately 1,300 sites. It's huge. It's a lot, with approximately like 14,000 charging points under direct investment. So the team started from 4 people, but ending up we are like 28 people, and then our monthly revenue was kind of $9,000 per month, but at the end of the day, it increased to like $700,000 dollars per month. So it was kind of a dramatic increases. So, but as I said before, due to the parent company's funding constraint, we closed the business. So this is a kind of an overview of charging stations in Korea. It looks quite different, because here, when I look at the EVgo charging stations, I'm not talking about Tesla, like a supercharger stuff, because it's different from pure CPO business, because they are car automakers. So as a pure CPO businesses, here there are many DC fast charging as a public stations. But in Korea, DC fast charging is operated mainly by government side. So private companies mostly do level 2 public chargers. So when you look at this, there are many like, small level 2 chargers. So this is what I did in Korea. So before that, I would like to introduce kind of a power market and CPO business structure. So when we look at the Texas and ERCOT is a kind of a deregulated market. So there are many like a retail electricity provider, TXU, Ambit, or whatever. But in Korea, the retail electricity supplying is it's just only one utility. So only one utility called the KEPCO control the the transmission, distribution, and retail supplying stuffs. So in these structures, but anyway, the charging point operator, CPO business is not like a rep positions. In Korea, it's the same. Here, the EVgo is not like a retail electricity provider. They are not selling electricity, but they are selling services. So what you are paying at EVgo is not for electricity, it's for services. They don't have a license to sell the electricity. So this is a small just differences about the kind of positions in the market, but I was doing that CPO business there. So this is kind of a result of our performances. So in 2023, in January, there are kind of a few stations there. But after 2 years, we built like a lot more than that. So within 2 years, like building more than 10,000 charging spots, it's a kind of a huge work. So when you look at the right chart there's a charging demand by time of day. Since we had like able to charge the most, so the power demand from our whole charging station is like that. Because maybe it's different from like a Texas situation, but our charging stations are mostly installed in the apartment, like a parking lot. So in this case, people just parking the car after work and then they just charge it, just like a home charging. But when you look at the DC faster chargers, the curve is just kind of flat because the demand is not matter with the kind of where you park. It's just demand depends on just when you want to charge. And then after installing after we increase our volumes, our monthly revenue is also really grows really fast. So it's on average 28% per month of kind of a growth rate. It's huge. So to understand the market, I try to kind of compare with the Texas. So maybe I don't know how many people in this room have visited Korea, but Korea is when it comes to the size, kind of 7 times smaller than Texas. And so it's just small, 7 times smaller than, I'm talking about only South Korea area. So, but the population is, we have like 51 million populations, but in Texas it's 31. So when it comes to GDP, Texas is not a country, but when you consider Texas as a country, it's a top 8 in the world. In Korea, it's a 13th. We are not the small countries in terms of GDP side, but Texas is huge. So when it comes to the number of households, it's quite different. Texas has 11 million households, but in Korea, we have 23 million households, which means that we have less kids, and then Texas has like more kids per household. And then when it comes to the number of registered vehicles, we have the same numbers, almost 26 million. I researched it, and Korea also has 26 million. But when it comes to the number of EVs, Texas is more than like 400K. It's 1.8% of the whole EV registration. But on the other hand, in Korea, it's almost like 900,000. It's 3.5% because Korea is the country of Hyundai Motors and the Kia. So they produce a lot of EVs. And then we also have a different kind of infrastructures compared to Texas. Also, I'm going to compare the economics of driving EVs in Korea and Texas later. But before that, when you just check the gas price, the Texas is just $2 or $3 dollars per gallon, but in Korea it's almost 2 times. And when it comes to retail electricity prices, including like utility charges, as Texas is from like 13 to 20 cents, and sometimes it's maybe it's 0 cents when you have a free night and when you charge at home. But in Korea is a regulated market, so there's no kind of a free night kind of plans. But anyway, the home charging cost is similar because our retail electricity prices is similar. But when it comes to the public fast charging cost, it's completely different. Like I said, it's not about like selling electricity, it's selling services. So EVgo or other CPOs can set their prices just as much they can. So it can be kind of a dynamic user prices, but sometimes it costs 30 cents, but sometimes it's 70 cents. But in Korea, the public fast charging costs are kind of following the retail electricity price. So it's relatively cheaper than Texas. So just this is kind of EV sales in Korea. Maybe you guys can be interested in knowing kind of other markets and the car prices. And then this is the price not including subsidies. So you can easily compare the price in Texas and the price in Korea. So of course the top selling car is a Model Y, Tesla. Tesla is like almost 25% of a wholesale, but the price of premium RWD is 34,000 US dollar. I think currently without ITC, the price of a Tesla Model Y premium RWD costs almost like 40K, I think. So it's way cheaper compared to Texas. And then when you look at the kind of prices, it's mostly cheap. So the most selling cars is not kind of luxury cars. It's more like a daily cars, something like that. Also, in Korea, we don't have like many pickup truck choices. Also, pickup trucks is not favorable because the distance of the road lane is quite like narrower than like what Texas does. And then the interesting is like BYD started selling their car like last year. And when you look at the prices, when you look at the prices, it's cheap enough. It's very cheap. It's very cheap, but they just started selling like from last October. So within 3 months, their market share is like up to like 1.5%. And then I'm expecting in this year how many cars BYD is going to sell in Korea, because this Atto 3, this brand, this car is the same size of this EV3 in Korea, which sold the second most in Korea. And then when you look at the prices, the price is almost 20% like lower. So as far as I know, there's no BYD selling in Texas, but I don't know if they can sell their car in the US. But if they are introduced in Texas and in the US, they will sell a lot actually. Yeah. So maybe you guys are why I was kind of installing that so many level 2 chargers on the public side, but this is because of the type of residence. In Texas and in Houston, people living in a kind of single family houses the most. So there are 70% of Texas are living in single family houses, but in Korea, it's less than 25%. And then Korean people lives in like a mostly apartment with a kind of shared parking lot. So there are many apartments, like a high-story apartment, and then the parking lot are mostly shared. So Korea doesn't have that much home charging situations. But on the other hand, Texas mostly have like a home charging situations, and then you guys who have like EVs and who lives in single family houses mostly have a home charging situation. So I think the converting to EV from internal combustion engines is not about just changing the engine. This is changing kind of way of life. So to understand the EV charging and the infrastructures and adoption rate, we need to understand where you live and how do your surroundings. So the key features of EV charging market in Korea is like that. So in Korea, it's interesting. It's mandatory of installation of EV chargers for at least 5% of our parking spaces. 5%. If you have like 100 parking spaces in an apartment, you should have like 5 charging spots. In Houston, I don't drive EV because I live in an apartment and the charging infrastructure is very poor. So I driving Honda CR-V at the moment. Yeah, but in Korea, because of these mandatory rules, and it's a very good situation to have a kind of charging. And then if you have that kind of a your your charges on the parking lot of apartment, which means that you have exclusive and captive access to the apartment resident who owns EV. But the ratio of EV owners in a certain apartment is actually increasing. So in the beginning, you don't have that much utilization rate of the EV charger as a kind of business runner. But at the end, after 2 years, after 3 years, the utilization rate of the EV charger is increasing. And we already occupied that spaces. Even though we increase the charging prices, the customer should accept the situation because it's too comfortable. Because you don't drive the car out of the apartment from the parking space and get the DC fasting charge and they come back. As long as you have your chargers at your public parking spaces. So there are so many apartment charging spaces in Korea. And then secondly, the government drive the DC faster charging, which means that private companies cannot compete with the government, like run the DC fast charging. So this situation makes the fast charging prices as low as possible and then killing like a private, like a charging point operator, just like EVgo. So the only surviving charge point operators in Korea is like a public level 2 charger operators, not DC fast charging stores. It's interesting. And then it's mostly lifestyle hub focused EV charging infrastructures. So when you look at the number of chargers, I said before, there are 900,000 EVs in Korea, but we have a level 2 charger of almost 400,000 level 2 chargers. So you can see wherever you park, you can find the EV chargers. But the number of public EV chargers in Texas is just a little bit more than 10,000, just 10,000. It's very few compared to 400,000. So the infrastructure itself is very much different. So I compared the economics of driving EV from like a fuel cost perspective. So in Texas, using this fast charging can cost more than fueling a gasoline powered vehicle because you guys pay just $2 per gallon. So, but this fast charging is very expensive. But whereas in Korea, charging costs, regardless of where you charge, are about 25 or 50% of a gasoline cost. So we know the EV efficiencies, and then we know gasoline vehicle efficiencies are about 25 miles per gallon, I assume that. But EV charging cost is from like 15 to 80 cents per kilowatt hour in Texas, but in Korea, it's 15 to like 30 cents per kilowatt hour. So when you compare the cost per mile of EV in Texas is from like is almost 5 cents to 30 cents per mile. But in Korea, could be like 5 to just 10 cents per mile. It depends on where you charge or this fast charging you use or not. So, but when it comes to the cost per mile of a gas vehicle in Texas, it's kind of 10 cents per mile. But in Korea, it's almost 20 cents per mile. So when you look at the economics, it's very reasonable to drive EV in Korea, and it might not be reasonable to drive EV in Texas. So in Texas, EV drive is not only about just economics. Of course, if you charge at home, it's cheaper than maybe cheaper than just fueling your car. But there are many other factors influencing the choice of EVs, like vehicle prices when you have subsidies, also preference for home charging. Somebody may not like visiting like gas stations because maybe they don't like the smell or they don't want to use that kind of a gas guns. with other people because of the hygiene reasons or something. Also, driving convenience and then driving performance is completely different compared to just internal combustion engines. So I like driving EV because of the performance. Yeah. Also, there are many people are eager to like new technologies. So because of to autonomous driving is not applying, we can't fully apply autonomous driving to internal combustion engine cars because of the response times. So people who are very much interested in kind of new technologies, they must like EV cars. So this is the growth of EV and EV infra in Korea and Texas. When you look at the EV adoption in Texas and Korea, we were quite similar in 2016 and 2017. But after COVID, maybe the situation changes, and then Korea is doubling now. And then number of EV chargers in Korea also increased very fast. So when you look at like EV to EV charger ratios, the orange line, as it was like 4 EVs to 1 EV chargers in 2020, but now there are so many EV chargers, so now it's 2 EV to 1 EV chargers. Yeah, this is kind of situation, but in Korea, there are kind of a significant subsidies supported by government, so that was kind of technically possible. Also, Texas is kind of heavily rely on home chargings, so that's why like actually you don't need that much like a public charging situations. So this is about future directions in EV charging technology development that I'm thinking of. So until 2023, it's kind of basic charging. You just charge and drive. It's very simple situations. But after like 2024, there is a kind of a demand response and participation is happening. So when the grid requires to lower your like a demand, and when we respond to that demand, then we can get some kind of incentives. This is a kind of an initial kind of step going forward to vehicle to grid situations, V2G situations. So Korea introduces kind of a demand response like a participation program, and then still running that. And then after 2025, now we can have a kind of efficient operation of EV charging by having so-called like a SECC. It's a supply equipment communication controller. It's kind of modem. So before that, we from charge point operators perspective, we can't see state of charge status at level 2 chargers. Level 2 charger cannot see state of charge of EVs. But by having this modem, CPOs, charge point operator can see state of charge of EVs, which means that when there is a request from the grid, and then the grid requests to lower the like a charging power or something, we can check the state of charge of each EV cars charging at our station at the same time, and then we can control their charging speed. So for example, if you do the home charging, actually you don't have to charge so fast. You just charge and you go home and sleep, and what you want is just fully charge in the morning, right? You don't actually care if it's charging fully charged at like a 5 a.m. or 3 a.m., something like that. So by having this kind of modem, by checking state of charge, charging point operator control the charging speed and then making like extra incentives. So maybe we could share that incentives to like EV users as well. So this is a direction of a kind of a future technology development. And then I think there are many people driving Tesla, and the Tesla has a PNC situations, right? Plug and charge. If you just plug, you don't have to charge it. You don't have to pay like extra at the at the DC fast charger standings. So this kind of a plug and charge situation will be normal to every car, not just only for like a Tesla stuffs. And this will be a kind of a step to vehicle to grid development situations. So thank you guys. And then since I'm working at a retail electricity provider, what I'm doing is kind of a product design for like EV and solar owned homeowners. And then by coupling with the like a ESS energy storage system situations, I create a kind of a certain plan is suitable for that homeowners as well. So maybe next time, if there is a chance, we can discuss about which kind of retail product do you want, and then I can reflect that kind of idea to design our kind of a product. Also, since I operated that business for 3 years, I fully understand the profitability and revenue structure of the EV charging business, just EVgo situation. So I know why EVgo is not making money and when they are going to make money. I don't think they can make money within like a 3 or 5 years. But yeah, but anyway, if I have a chance later, I can definitely discuss about this. Yeah.
Yeah, that all sounds great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, BK.
Yeah.
And you're
Sorry.
especially right about some people not liking the smell of gasoline. That's my wife. She can't
Yeah,
stand
yeah,
going to
yeah.
gas stations anymore. So, but we have some questions online. I know
all right.
Omar wrote one. I don't know if you see them there or if Colin can read them off. Yeah, go ahead, Bill. So the energy mix between fossil and other sources.
I don't 100% remember, but we have a nuclear power plant. And the renewables is almost less than 10% because we are a small country, but our power demand is a lot bigger than Texas because we have like a semiconductor manufacturing facilities and the chemical, so use a lot of electricity. So we have a nuclear the most, and then gas power plant, and then coal power plant, and renewables. And mostly the price is driven by gas power plant because the gas is the most expensive power plant. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we can see some things on the screen there, or I can read to you. Are there various compositions of solar collection materials? Oh, that was, okay. So in Korea, are you using time of use or managed charging?
Time of use price. There are some CPOs like offering time of use prices, but mostly it's a fixed rate.
Okay.
Mostly fixed rate.
So does Chariot request PTO from transmission companies for your customers?
Does it show you?
Permission to operate, yeah. So is Chariot a retail electric provider? So
Yeah.
it just deals with the normal.
Yeah, we are not installer. The PTO that term is for installers who install the solar and the battery systems, but I don't know if you know QCES. Have you heard about QCES?
The company QCell
Yeah,
that makes
QCES
panels and
manufacturing
such.
solar modules, and that they also doing the same is just like a Sunrun. So they do all the installation stuff. We work with that kind of company. That company take care of this PTO stuffs. But at the same time, when QCES have the customers who has a solar and battery system, we approach to that customers and offer our retail plan tailored for that customers. But we don't do that.
I was referring to your bidirectional charging for retail at home to put power on the grid. Yeah.
Bidirectional charging is not allowed in Texas, I think.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yet.
Yeah.
But it will be.
Yeah. Yeah, if we are the owner of EV charger, or if we install the EV charger, we should definitely take care of this kind of stuffs. But since we are just a retail energy electricity provider for now, We don't do that. Yeah.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
Omar also asks, EVgo's time of use
No.
pricing is why? Laughing
That
out
that
loud.
was a statement for why he said EVgo is not profitable. It's because their time of use pricing is terrific.
Okay, I was just
So-
gonna ask you what you
so,
meant by
yeah.
that, Omar. Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, so that's just a statement, not so much a question.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
from Chris Chen, besides tariffs, why are EVs cheaper in Korea than the US, even for the same models? So you mentioned Teslas are much cheaper in
I
Korea than-
think it's a sales strategy. Also, we also have a Tesla manufactured in China.
Yes. It
Usually,
doesn't have to
usually
travel as far. The cars can.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that's the differences. Also, I was surprised that the Hyundai's and the Kia's EV in Texas is much more expensive than the price in Korea.
Yeah.
Because here's the car price in the US is higher than the average price in the world, kind of globally. So
Yeah.
this is the kind of situation. Also, the bad situation of the United States is that there used to be subsidies, but no subsidies anymore, right?
Right.
But in Korea, there's still kind of a subsidy. But the price that I wrote is not including subsidies. So actually, it's much cheaper.
Oh, the subsidies in Korea still
Yeah,
currently?
yeah.
Okay, so that brings the cost down. Plus the
Yeah.
cost of charging, as
Yeah.
you showed on your
Yeah.
charts, are much cheaper than in
Yeah.
Texas. Yeah. The public.
And China is able to export into Korea with no tariffs?
Oh, there must be tariff, but I don't exactly remember.
But-
I just oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's obviously not a prohibitively high tariff like there is for the US against importing Chinese cars.
Right. Yeah. So when you look at the price of a BYD, it's just still very cheap. I mean, it's not that much from the price in China. It's not that much. Of course, a little bit higher than the price in China, but it's still very cheap. So which means that we don't pose that much taxes on that.
Kia and Hyundai sell in China.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they are not selling that
not
much.
selling that much.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also depends on how much a company wants to make, what kind of margin. So they have to price for the market if they want to sell cars.
Yeah. And then right.
Cars have V2G. I know the F50 Lightning had that.
Uh,
But I don't know, do any of these common models have
Cybertruck.
V2G at all?
So V2G on these models.
Cybertruck.
Okay, V2G, yeah. That's not on that's not in Korea.
V2G, I think V2 is a matter. V2G is a matter of chargers. It's not that much matter of EV cars. So what I remember that car has to support it, but it's not that how can I say? It's not a big technology from a car's perspective because
And nobody marketed a charger in the States.
Yeah.
In Europe.
yeah, I don't fully know of like a European market, but the thing is like if to do the V2G stuff, the EV charger must have some kind of a proper kind of a controllers in the V2G chargers, and then even though that charger has that kind of a controllers, the regulation and the power market should allow the V2G activities. So yeah. It says V2L, but the V2L definitely, and the V2G, I don't know about the lighting. Yeah.
I'll be happy to answer that. It has a bidirectional inverter built into the Lightning, and that allows it to pull power out of the DC pins into the 80 amp Ford Charge Station Pro, which feeds it into a Delta Sunrun inverter, which is tied to your house, or solar too from another inverter.
All right.
Good transition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forward in and out. So thanks so much, BK.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll definitely have you talk about.
All right. Thank you for having me, and sorry for my poor English. I'm not native speaker.
No, all the things you're saying are getting through. It's great, and your slides were great. So yeah, we'll definitely have you talking about more. But all right, so Omar is remote because he travels out of Texas up to Michigan a lot because, of course, Ford is up there in Dearborn. And so you can see Omar there in the upper left. And some of you may have met him because he was here at our social and other things. So we hope to have a lot more interaction. But tonight, he said he has a set presentation, and then we're going to do some Q&A.
All right. You guys see
Okay.
this? This is definitely not what I was showing. Hold on. To find the presentation. Right there. All right. So I had to find a presentation that was scrubbed of proprietary and secret and confidential data. I have just last week, I led a Pacific Gas and Electric training webinar for understanding demand energy resources, vehicle to X, and charging infrastructure. And if anyone's an engineer, this would count as a continuing education credit. This is authorized and released. It was recorded. I had a co-facilitator from the Mobility House, and I will go over her section just because it was fantastic. So this is a training overview for demand energy resources, also which pertains to demand energy response, emergency load reduction programs, vehicle to everything, which is a all-encompassing placeholder for vehicle to grid, vehicle to home. These are the upcoming sessions. To get through it. So, vehicle to grid integrations. This is the future of EVs. EVs, this is the first time in history that a convergence of technology, software, utilities, and customers have come together where your vehicle is now an energy resource. It can be utilized in many different ways to load shed your energy bill. It can be used to put power back on the grid. It can be used to just back up power your house. And this is the fascinating times. There's some certain things that are required for vehicle to everything for grid resiliency, but I will go over those once I introduce myself. This was Kate Peterson, the project manager and lead strategist for the Mobility House. I am Omar Riahi. I just got a promotion. What is my title? Global EV Enablement and Sales Development Manager. And I technically work for Percepta, but Percepta is a very interesting company. Let me get down to it. 1 second, guys. Sorry, this was done in order. So Percepta is a 25-year-old automotive customer experience company. We are global. We are in 66 markets. We speak 17 languages. We have 9 OEM clients. We are a joint venture between the Ford Motor Company and T-Tech, 2 global behemoth companies. We do all of these services for OEM clients. And the way to think of it is I touch the entire customer life cycle. Everything from dealer support, pre-sales, onboarding of a new vehicle, home charging, public charging, energy rewards, energy solutions. And so I get to see adapters. Oh man, that's a fun one. I was in a meeting there today about adapters. And so I get to experience everything. I do retail, I do fleet, I do fleetail, which is anything considered a micro fleet under 5 vehicles that is not buying in bulk. So think like John's Pool Service, driving around with a Lightning, or Tiff's Treats with a e-Transit. I also cover Europe, and there's 9 EVs that are sold by Ford in Europe. I also do South Asia, or APAC, Australia, Thailand, Vietnam, and I'm also working South America now. But we do everything. We do dealer support, we do loaners, any type of interaction. We do business to consumer, business to dealer, and business to business. And this is where the most interesting part is, because I talk to your customers. I talk to Ford customers. I talk to Jaguar Land Rover customers. I talk to Volvo customers. it's not me physically, but I used to. But this is where I get the voice of the customer. I know what will work, what won't work, many different things. We are a global company. We are in 66 markets. Our parent company is in all 7 continents and speaks 38 languages. And there's not a single touch point or market that I do not have access to. So I get a global holistic view of everything that's going on, EV related, as well as being up here in Dearborn at Ford World headquarters. I also know what's coming. This is where I will use the Lightning as a specific use case on this, but integrating demand energy response and vehicle to everything. Why is this important? This is the cutting edge facilitation. Europe is way ahead of us on this. That they're already powered up with, they're already partnered up with Electroverse and Octopus Energy, and they are facilitating demand energy response programs for certain grid loads. In Europe, there's one country in particular that is definitely behind, and that is Italy. They do not have two-phase power. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes, we can.
Yeah, they do not have two-phase power. So in Italy, it's one-phase or three-phase for manufacturing. Not in everywhere, but some of the older villages, which means you cannot charge your EV and run your dishwasher at the same time. And that was because they rebuilt the grid after World War II. They didn't incorporate two-phase power. So how do demand energy resources strengthen the energy ecosystem? A distributed energy resource is a small-scale power source near consumption sites, solar, turbines, BESS systems, and EVs. The benefits of a distributed energy resource is you get to reduce transmission loss, you get to localize backup power, vehicle to grid, you get to do integrations, as well as on the consumer level, they turn consumers into prosumers. In other words, there was a test case that we did with a guy in Baltimore. He was with Baltimore Light and Power. He was turning $1,000 a month just doing vehicle to grid with his Lightning. He was a test to the point where I think Baltimore Light and Power capped it now, how much money they can make. Generally, it's depending on what type of system you have or what agreements you have. If you conditionally pre-have solar already, they will generally pay you what you put onto it. What you pay for electricity, they will generally pay with you, but that varies by utility, market, and company. DTE uses time of use pricing. CenterPoint will do point for coin, but kilowatt per kilowatt. The benefits of demand distributed energy resources is you get grid resiliency. The use case I love to cite is, imagine Houston gets hit by a hurricane. Most of the population is driving EVs. Your house is cut off by a branch sitting on the power line. A message will go out to all the customers, either from the OEM using a vehicle grid integrations platform like ChargeScape or your utility. And they will text you, hey, if you're not going anywhere, can we pull power off your EV and feed it onto the grid to power? We will pay you for it. This also works, the same communication format will work for demand energy, for time of use demand response, where they want you to stop charging. We also call it managed charging, or you might hear it as sustainable charging. And that way, the scenario that I love to paint for that is Houston, Texas, August, 5 p.m. Everyone has their air conditioner running because it is hot outside. Well, they will send out a message and ask you to pause charging on your vehicle, and that way it will reduce the grid load. Supplemented with battery energy storage systems, this improves grid resiliency, and we won't see another snowbit anymore. ERCOT has upgraded the grid in Texas with battery energy storage systems, which has directly reduced price spikes and outages, as well as the cold weather updates. So I had to put Pacific Gas and Electric's service area in this because I was teaching for them. But vehicle to home and vehicle to grid are bidirectional EV charging technologies that act as distributed energy resources. The way to think of it as home backup power is if my power goes out in my neighborhood, I can use my EV to directly power my house. It's behind the meter. It does not require permission to operate from the grid. It does not need any of that. It is just, do I have a bidirectional EV basically like a lightning? Do I have a bidirectional home charger? Do I have an inverter? You can get an optional battery energy storage system like a Tesla Powerwall or a Sigma Energy one that also has an inverter that will power your house in an outage. And what home backup power is considered, it is power flowing from your battery on your electric vehicle through your charger, through an inverter, either to a sub panel or your main panel, depending on if you had room. Possibly load management would be required depending on the age of your house, because one house is not wired the same as the next. And you could power your house for 3 to 10 days, depending on the size of your battery and what you want to power. Vehicle to home is absolutely fascinating technology. This does require permission to operate from the utility. What that means, the best way to think of it is, if I can load shed half of my energy bill by powering half of my house from my EV. This yet again requires a bidirectional EV, a bidirectional charger, and an inverter. And you get to sub-panel out what systems you want to load. Do you want to power your dishwasher? Do you want to power your washing machine, certain rooms? The vehicle does not, puts out 9.6 kilowatts for the Lightning. It has Pro Power on board of 30 amps, but you cannot power an air conditioning unit that's very large. Small window units, that's about it. It does not have enough power to sustain a large HVAC system. For heat, it does, because especially if you have gas, it does not have enough power. Depending on what you have for a vapor heat pump, it will power it. But gas with a blower, no problem. It can power that and keep your house warm in the winter. That is a not so big of a concern in Texas, but up here in Michigan, yes. And then, of course, my favorite, vehicle to grid. And as you see on this map, these are actual energy octagons from EPRI's roadmap. If I clicked in on one of those, in fact, let me just do that. Hold on. This bar is right in my way where I can't get to it. It is right here. Oh, they're out right now. Never mind. But it will click in, and I can see the real-time grid loads of that octagon across the United States. And then it also does GIS map overlays of energy corridors, charging infrastructure, as well as power utility service territories. So what's the WIFM? What's in it for me as a consumer wanting an EV? So the description of emergency home backup power is, if your house loses power, your EV battery is a temporary power source, including outages. Like I said, my Mach-E cannot do this. It does not have bidirectional capabilities, and my home charger is not a bidirectional charger, and I don't have an inverter. Now, you can use your EV to do that because you can keep critical systems running, internet, your refrigerator, whatever you need if another hurricane hits Houston. It also gives you peace of mind of an outage. Most people, if you see after a storm that hits Houston, Generac sales spike. Now, the difference is Generacs require maintenance. You need air filters, oil changes. You have to start it up. It doesn't matter if it's gasoline powered or fed off a natural gas line. It is still an ICE engine that requires maintenance. With your EV, nothing to worry about. It's all software and energy flows and an inverter. There are even subsystems for your inverter that the SPAN digital panel, for example, it's a digital panel that you can control through an app and turn on and off systems to better manage better do load management to keep your backup power going longer, as well as vehicle to home. So the value for utilities for home backup power is it reduces emergency response load spikes. It also improves community resilience, which means if a neighborhood is out and I know I'm doing vehicle to grid and I have some customers have home backup power, they can be a little more resilient, so I can prioritize the bigger problems as opposed to one house out on the grid or a neighborhood out as opposed to a down transmission line. So that is the value add to the utilities. Vehicle to home is even better. The EV actively powers subsystems, certain certain circuits, whatever you designate, it will power. This lowers your energy bill because it load sheds half your power consumption to your EV battery. So you're not pulling it off the grid, so you're not getting charged for it. It does do greater control of how and when energy is used, but it optimizes solar and EV investments. So if you have solar wired to your inverter that will trickle charge a power wall during the day, that you can come home, use that to charge your EV at night, then during the day, the solar loads your battery, your power wall up. It can reduce your energy bill. I have a friend out there in Cyprus. He has a Lightning. He has both inverters, the one we sold, and then Sigma, and another inverter for his solar, and he only pays $14 a month for his energy. During the day, his solar charges his power wall. He comes home, charges his EV, and then it also powers the house overnight. So he's not utilizing any grid power. And he literally only has 2 circuits not wired up to this system, and that is his dishwasher and his dryer. And that is why he only pays $14 a month. And you can map this out on energy dashboards for Ford. It's our Ford Energy Rewards dashboard. And on like GM Energy has it. Sigma has a really good app. In fact, I'm going to promote the Sigma inverter right now. It is instantaneous when power switches. The current Delta inverter of Ford, which is being phased out, it has about a 60-second delay. So what is the value to utilities? This flattens peak demand response. As we saw on the previous graph, during the afternoon, the graph went up. This could flatten it by managing demand load during events. Think Houston, August, everyone has their air conditioner on, 5 p.m. at the hottest time of the day. If you load shed during that, and Houston is not that bad because we are an unregulated energy market, but DTE up here, they do time of use pricing based on demand, so your cost of energy goes up on high time of use pricing. So it also avoids the need for expensive short-term power sources. In other words, Generac generators. I don't need it if my huge EV battery can power my house, load shed my bill, reduce my consumption on the grid, and then also provide grid resiliency. This enables demand response without customer disruption. So if think of an emergency load for event, California is really big with these, so is Connecticut. They will literally, if it's a high demand response system, they will send out a message saying, hey, can we take power from your vehicle, or can you load shed with vehicle to home to reduce the grid's demand? And that brings us as a perfect segue to vehicle to grid. This is where your EV will send back power to the grid, and it will adjust charging in response to grid needs, often in exchange for incentives or payments, including V2L and vehicle to vehicle. What that means is there are current programs in Texas, TXU Energy, also known as Vistra, but we know it as TXU. We have a V2G program, which is where TXU will give you an incentive to sign up. I think it's like $250. And if you have a Ford, when you charge it between a certain charge window, specific like Chariot Power's free EV nights, they will credit your bill back for when you charge your Ford. So it's Ford free miles for Ford customers. This is not specifically known to Texas or TXU. There are 3,000 utilities across the United States, and many of them have a basic V2G program. The one that just sunset was SMUD in San Francisco, San Francisco Municipal Utility District. PG&E has one, and in DTE, Xcel Energy, Duke Energy, all the big boys have them. But when you do this, it turns your vehicle into, the first time in history, a revenue stream where your vehicle can sit there and you can make passive income. Now, these demand response events or emergency load shedding programs do not happen very often. California does see a higher variation of them because their grid is really stressed. But the benefits of this is you can now sit back and make money from your EV while at home. It monetizes your battery and unused capacity to make money, especially in emergency events, hurricanes, snowstorms, outages, or time of use pricing. You can definitely schedule your vehicle to grid to feed the grid if they have a request to go out. But none of this happens without a message to the consumer or the customer that says, do you want to participate? No one is going to pull your battery power if you have plans, like you have to go pick up your kids, an event. It's only if you decide you're not going anywhere, can we pull power from your vehicle, with your permission, of course. So this is the way to think of it is I love to go back at this map over here. See this over here, San Francisco. Imagine there is a demand response event because of an earthquake. They send out a San Francisco Municipal Utility District, or PG&E, will send out an alert asking, can we pull power for vehicle to grid? They will take every EV with a bidirectional inverter, permission to operate, another sub-meter, because this is like solar, it has to be sub-metered, so they can track how much power you put on the grid. And they will start using the EVs to power the grid while they restore services. So that means it's not an entire millions of customers without power. It's only a few that don't have an EV for home backup power, or their transmission line was taken down for some reason. So that's where that works. So imagine all of this octagon could be self-sustainable and power its entire neighborhood because enough EVs with vehicle-to-grid capabilities or vehicle-to-home or home backup power are operating there. California is leading the United States in EV adoption and vehicle-to-grid and energy technology. We are behind Europe, and the next market that is blowing up is APAC, or International Markets Group, Southern Asia. Nepal is at 76% EV adoption in a year, followed by Thailand, Vietnam. Europe has been doing it for almost a decade with Norway. They're at 98.3%. But the surprising number this year is Nepal. Out of nowhere, they're at 76% and on pace to be the first country on earth to hit carbon neutrality. Now, you have to ask yourself why. What's the root cause of this? They have to import all their gasoline. They are neighbors to China, which makes phenomenal EV products. They have hydroelectric power, and they are putting in infrastructure left and right. I just read a white paper yesterday on this about how developing nations are surpassing the rest of the world in EV adoption. And you look at the United States and you ask, well, why is that? And it's because it makes sense to them. As we saw from the previous presenter, he was explaining how gasoline is more expensive. They pay by the liter, but energy is cheaper. So it just makes sense. So, demand energy resources, what does it take to get there? This requires decentralized power. In other words, we are moving it from, there's power generation, but instead of having to invest millions of dollars in battery energy backup, BESS systems, battery energy storage systems, you can utilize the fleets of EVs that are there. There's implementation changes that are problems. For example, ERCOT does not yet allow vehicle to grid. They had a bill, 3511, the House resolution in Texas, and then the Senate shot it down. But it's happening. All the major OEMs and utilities, I know I'm working with CFS in San Antonio with International Trucks, because they have a free EV bus system or EV bus program where they manufacture EV buses and provide them with a federal grant free of charge to school districts. Now, that is where some certain regulations are required to allow vehicle to everything or vehicle to grid at that scale. When you start applying this to a fleet scale, I'm talking Class 8 semis, I'm talking EV buses. What's the value stream proposition in that? If I'm a school district and I have a fleet of EV buses, I can utilize them for vehicle to building, which is just the bigger version of vehicle to home. I can utilize them to power an entire school that is designated as an emergency storm shelter during an outage event. I don't need to have diesel trucked in anymore for the generators. It lasts more than 3 days, and I have an entire fleet of these in my bus barn. So when they start running low on battery, I just swap them out. And you can do 2 or 3 at a time, depending on the load management required for that. So the way to think of it is, I have a fleet of school buses. A tornado hits Kansas. I designate a school as an emergency storm shelter or an event, and I can utilize my fleet of EV school buses to power that until services are restored or emergency rescue comes in. This is absolutely groundbreaking stuff. And it is where it's all going, as well as how, I mean, it's cutting edge. Now, for fleets, they can utilize them for their business, vehicle to building, to, if a storm hits or something happens and there's an outage, they can utilize their vehicles not in service to power their business to stay in operation. The one I love to use that people never think about is the U.S. Mail. And they've transitioned to an EV, well, mostly to an EV fleet, depending on where that is. And they can utilize their fleet of EVs to keep their facility open in emergency situations to keep the mail going. Amazon can do it with their fulfillment centers, with their fleet of Rivians. And this is where no one thinks about it, but an EV then plays a part as critical infrastructure to keep the lights on, the service trucks rolling to restore power, and emergency storm shelters, and basically survival, as well as bussing in washing machines like HEB disaster relief. Think of that. They roll in with 18 Class 8 semis that are EVs. They can set up power people. They can charge. They can do dishwashing. They can do washing clothes, cooking, everything. So that is where it is. Now, there was a case study I participated in with Southern Power Company in Georgia and Ford Pro. Southern Company is a power company in Georgia that has a huge fleet of Lightnings. They were using the Ford Pro Charger 80 amp light on, and we did a VPP challenge. A VPP is a virtual power plant. That is what you would consider vehicle to grid at scale. In other words, I have an entire county of vehicles wired up, participate in vehicle to grid. It is considered a virtual power plant. You can use it to the energy. You can use it to power your building. You can use it to power a neighborhood. That's all of course, with permission to operate. So the pilot and scope challenge was collaboration with Southern Company and Ford Pro Fleet Solutions. They did a 6-month pilot across Alabama and Georgia, 172 vehicles, 200 chargers. Challenge was unmanaged depot charging strains local grid assets while electrification scales. Everyone has seen the news stories saying that California's grid can't handle it. It's a fallacy in some parts, but it happens. The solution from Ford Pro Intelligence was they integrate with utility signals and initiate some test demand response events. They temporarily would pause charging on fleets during high demand times, which is generally the afternoon, rush hour, or when air conditioners are on, people are charging at public chargers, everyone leaves work. It also shifts the dynamic pricing window down. If you pause charging on your fleet at scale, that's the key word, at scale, it will definitely reduce grid load and lower the cost for dynamic pricing markets. The impact was a 29% reduction in monthly energy costs. At fleet, there's something called surge pricing. 16,000 total savings. I will explain what surge pricing is. When you have a CPO, they have a PowerPoint agreement. They come in and they do a high watermark. So the nightmare scenario is I have 350 kilowatt chargers and 3 Hummer EVs with 246 kilowatt batteries pull up zero. They will take the cumulative total of that charge point and cite the demand or the pull of kilowatts as the high watermark, even if it only spikes at 1,050 once, and that's the price they set. We've been seeing that slowly impact charge point operators, especially at our Ford dealers, because they're not expecting that. And what that does when you start reducing that demand response and load shedding, you save $16,000 in total savings, half a megawatt in instant load drop during demand response, enough to power 500 homes. And there was zero disruption to fleet readiness or operations of vehicles. In other words, their fleet still had enough power and battery state of charge to deploy to an emergency if needed, or an outage, or an event, or anything that happened, a transformer blowing. And that is the benefit of managed charging that at scale, proven solution that delivers financial and grid benefits. Does anyone have any questions so far before I go on to the next section? I can't hear you.
Question is when?
When is this? This is happening right now.
For retail residential.
Yes. Texas, they're waiting for the ERCOT to pass the bill. There's other energy companies, Pacific Gas. By the way, you want to know the fun thing with dealing with utilities, guys? Lots of them have the letters P, G, and E in them in different variations. PSEG in Long Island, Pacific Gas and Electric, Portland Gas and Electric. The companies mostly in California are ahead of the curve on this. Excel Energy is tested a small pilot in Roswell, New Mexico. DTE is doing this up here in Detroit and their energy market. But in Texas, we're still waiting we're still on a V1G program. We are not there yet because we do not have ERCOT's permission to put power on the grid in a vehicle-to-grid event. You can do home backup power for sure. That doesn't involve any permission to operate.
I have a question about the dynamic pricing. Instead of asking you to not charge, did you actually let them take from your battery and pay you?
Yes, some markets do that. What they do is if they can't meet the demand load, they will send out the message and ask for vehicle to grid, and you can put power onto the grid at that price. Whatever the price is, generally they will do a cost agreement because they don't want to do it. But yes, they can, depending on what the event is, how big of a virtual power plant or demand response event they need, and the basically what's the gap between our production and that we need to fill it in to maintain service. But yes, they will do that in reverse. That would be considered the emergency load reduction program. Any other questions? No. All right, I will cover Katie's section. She had a really good response. So her company, the Mobility House, what they do is they are doing V2X project, vehicle to everything projects, specifically in California, New York, Connecticut, and I can't remember the other one. But she's focused mostly on school buses, which we don't make it for, but we do make the chassis for them. So this is how I was explaining with vehicle to building. Oakland has a V2B project with Pacific Gas and Electric targeting 2 BEVs. They're using city buses to power emergency response programs. They're also using school vehicle to grid with the small Class 6 buses, EV buses. And then they are also utilizing a Pittsburgh school district in Northern California for vehicle to grid and vehicle to building. Those are the larger Bluebird big buses. They make buses in all sizes. Now, imagine this at scale with all these different energy resources participating at once. You have a city bus. You have smaller school buses for last mile. Well, that's how I would refer to it as last mile delivery. You have the larger school buses doing emergency storm shelter. And all of that pertains at once. And you can keep your lights on. Doesn't require any infrastructure at scale. I don't need to build any special transformers. I don't need to build a gas generation. I don't need to build a substation. I utilize current grid operations to power in an emergency. The Mobility House is also one of Ford's partners in Europe. That's how I know them. And demand charge management is bill savings. So that's what I was explaining on the consumer level. She's talking about at scale on the fleet level. They use demand response events, peak system to reduce grid load by asking you to vehicle to home power or vehicle to grid. And the key output of all of that is grid resiliency. You see less price spikes, you see less outages, you see less need to run, think wind farms in East Texas or West Texas. They don't need to run all the wind generators at once because they can utilize this, especially if some are down for maintenance or they need to be down for maintenance. It is an entire new world of how this operates. She also covered vehicle to vehicle, which is we are seeing a use case for that on roadside, Ford roadside. This is where tow trucks no longer need to carry those big dolly-sized batteries to come give you a charge. They can roll up in a upfitted Lightning and just literally plug into their ProPower onboard with a mobile charger and power your vehicle up enough to get you to the next charge point, which, if anyone's wondering, we will just tow you for free to the next charge point, your house or a dealer. But that is how vehicle to vehicle works. So if the scenario I love to use is your wife's driving your EV, she runs out of power, you have a Lightning or a Cybertruck or something that's capable of vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to load, and you drive over there and charge her up just enough to get to the charge point. Same scenario as your wife took your car and ran out of gas. You got to go get gas and gas her up. Vehicle to grid is much bigger. It's where you're powering your neighbor's house or the building. It's through a charge and discharge event with bidirectional charging. And this is where the Mobility House operates, 150 North American fleets. I don't work for them. I don't know them, but she had a really good deck I thought I'd share with you guys. All right. And I think that's it. Yeah. All right. Now I would love to open it up for some Q&A. You guys can ask me anything. I literally touch the entire ecosystem of charging. How does the amount of charging, discharging, cycling events affect battery longevity in the vehicle? Very simple. The same, though, that is anytime energy is flowing in and out of a vehicle, it is considered wear and tear on the vehicle. Manufacturers have to apply this as they equate this the same way we would with the diesel, idle hours. This is required because we have a mandatory 8-year, 100,000-mile battery warranty. So we have to track energy flows in and out of the battery because it will cause dendrites and wear and tear on the battery. So it is tracked through energy flows, which equates to mileage on the odometer. It could be hours, idle hours too. Just like on a diesel, you can see the mileage and you can see the idle hours. Why? Because diesels sit there and idle, especially think concrete pump trucks, fire trucks, ambulances, utility trucks. That's why both are tracked. So the same will apply to your vehicle. Energy flowing in and out of the vehicle will be considered wear and tear. Just FYI, we're currently not tracking that, but that's what they plan to do.
Yeah, more questions for Omar. So what is that logo on your shirt?
Oh, it's just I don't know. It has nothing to do with Ford. It's just I don't know. It's a guy on a skateboard. I'm not wearing any Ford merch today, just my backpack.
Well, we're the EV vehicles. I mean, it could be an EV skateboard, but
I have an electric skateboard. It's
yes, all right.
I put 8,000 miles on it. It is the best thing I've ever bought.
8,000?
Especially if you live in downtown Houston. I'm not finding parking. I'm going to ride the bike lanes everywhere inside the loop on my electric skateboard.
All right. I love it. Good.
I had to change out the battery one time from wear and tear, and it only cost $100 to ship back to the manufacturer. Fun fact, you got to send it FedEx ground. They won't let you put it on an airplane overnight because it's lithium ion.
Specify ground. Good. So
for over EVs without vehicle to load capabilities, is there any way to upgrade them to make it work? So that's a hilarious story. There was a guy during this winter storm that I saw on LinkedIn that was using his Mustang Mach-E with an inverter on his tiny 12-volt battery low voltage system powering his house. I would say you could do it. I don't want to know about it. Don't tell your manufacturer about it. We didn't see it, but you could do it. There are systems there. I know Sigma Energy's system will trick the inverter into thinking it's DC fast charging and start pulling it out of the battery. What it does is it sends a load into the DC pins. It tricks the inverter into thinking that, oh, I'm about to receive a charge, when in fact it starts pulling power from it. If your vehicle doesn't have it, this will work. It probably has some negative impacts downstream that I don't know about. I would not, if you have a warranty problem, don't tell them about that, but because it will void your warranty.
Okay, more questions. Because there's just all kinds of good stuff going on here.
Do you have any comment on Tesla's announcement about V2G with the Cybertruck that they just announced?
I didn't see it. I've been in all sorts of meetings all week. What was the announcement?
They announced that they're bringing V2G to the Cybertruck, and they started reaching out in Texas, and they started reaching out to customers. Colin got a letter from them, a survey. What I have heard is that Tesla's got a bidirectional capability in the Cybertruck. They also have bidirectional capability in the Performance Model Y. And with they're their home charger, their latest generation home charger has bidirectional capability.
Mhm.
So, right now, Colin, he did a demonstration where, he islanded the house and the truck picked up on the fact that there was power loss. And like you said, there was a delay and the truck started picking up the load.
Yep.
But with bidirectional capability, your vehicle will now act just like your solar does or your power walls do, and so the vehicle will pick up the load immediately
Yes.
if the grid goes down. So I didn't know if you'd heard about that, but
I have. I didn't know they announced it, but this is not new capabilities. I literally went and did a bidirectional power shed test today at Vehicle Powertrain Electrification Center. The Cybertruck has had this capability for a while. Tesla puts their inverter in their power wall, and all you have to do is wire it up, and that way it will kick on. I want to say near instantaneous. Let's just put it this way: it's faster than the lightning. So there is a benefit to that.
I don't have a power wall, so I just have a gateway and the bidirectional charger. That's it.
So there are other ways you can also power your house. You don't actually need a power wall. There is a company called Global Power Products that allows anyone with a vehicle to load 240 outlet in the bed. As Ford uses the Pro Power onboard, it goes between your meter and your service wall. It's called right behind the meter, and it allows you to connect a cable, run it to the Pro Power onboard. You turn it on, and then you can manually cut your breaker, and as well as turn on certain circuits. These existed for 20 years with gasoline vehicles. Ford now does it with their Lightnings. We partner with them, but there's other ways than the full-blown home integration system, guys. So it also, when the grid does come back on, it does not backfeed, and it is a surge protector for your house.
Aha. So is there more in the chat?
See, wear and tear on the battery failure within the guaranteed time. What would be the cost to incur to consumers? I cannot speak to other manufacturers, but I can speak to us. We have done studies. Ironically, someone said this yesterday to Andrew Frick, the vice president who reports up to Jim Farley. He called the Mach-E the cockroach of cars because it's not going to die with an LFP battery. All the tests and modeling, they've made it so resilient that we don't see degradation below 90% after 10 years. And
10
yeah.
years.
Yeah, it's modeled that's with lithium iron phosphate. Now with the nickel cadmium manganese batteries, they are about 87 to 88, but that is a different chemistry with different operating requirements. But LFP is turning out very resilient. I do not know anything about LMRs yet, but the LFP battery on the Mach-E has been very, very well. Now you do see other manufacturers that are planning future state. Tesla has now standardized their battery design pack, same connections, same coolant connections, and what that allows them to do, same configuration on every vehicle. What that allows them to do is if you do need a battery upgrade, let's say you're outside of warranty, you pay $5,000, you get the latest battery chemistry, and it just hooks up into your vehicle. They do a software flash, and you are operating like a brand new vehicle, making EVs. The failure point on an EV is literally the battery pack. Wear items are, we have a Mach-E with 300,000 miles that on the original brake pads because you're using one pedal driving. The shocks might have to be changed soon, but the wear items don't exist anymore. You went from 4,500 moving parts on average in the gas engine to 40. A stator, a motor, and then some suspension components. The rest of it is all software and energy flows, maybe a manual connector in the BMS to engage the battery pack depending on the design, but that's it. So a full-blown battery pack replacement is coming down because the cost of lithium, and as 30 planned battery fabrication plants come online between now and 2030, batteries will drop to asininely cheap prices. We will not be close to BYD because they own everything. They are fully vertically integrated from the mine to the dealership, including the ships, the batteries, and the chips. But it will get down there to a point where it won't matter. I know the Ford UEV is coming out next year. It is a mid-size truck priced at $30,000 with an LFP battery of 310 miles of range. That is groundbreaking consumer price point.
So
What's the tow capacity on that vehicle? Do you know?
I have no, I don't even know what they're going to call it. I just know it by the engineering number. I don't know what branding is going to call it. I don't have any of those specs. I just have the energy specs and the stuff they've made public.
one article said Ranchero, the name was going to come
I've
back.
seen that too, but we do have the Maverick too, guys. So even though that was never a truck, but we've now made it a truck. So
Right. So LFP is really leading because I've heard sodium and aluminum are maybe coming up soon with the Chinese sodium battery.
so my Mach-E, I can see this on the battery pack. We have a battery management system. Generally, I didn't see any degradation on it until I started hitting about 15,000 miles, and I was not even fully draining it. LFP batteries, because they have a very flat energy curve, require you to charge it for the Fords once a month to 100%. So, because you see a voltage spike at the end of the charge curve, that's how it knows where the battery's full. The line is so flat, it has to guesstimate. Tesla requires it once a week. But it typically, I'm currently at 96%, and I have 23,000 miles on it in 2 years, and probably about 3,000 cycles. Very low DC fast charging on mine. I only 99% of the time, unless I stop at Buc-ee's if I'm going to Austin or Dallas, that's the only place I charge. 99% of it is at home. Now, we modeled it out at 80-20. In other words, 80% of charging will be done on AC home, 20% DC fast charging, and it's still resilient. Some of the my friend's Lightning still has 100%. He's a lithium ion battery. 100%. He has 50,000 miles on it, and we tow with his Lightning a 7,000-pound wakeboarding boat to Austin, and he has no degradation whatsoever. You will see we don't even warranty a battery pack out till it hits 70% capacity. So it has to be very bad, and we've gotten very few of those.
Okay, what else do we have in the chat?
How many cycles of charge? I answered that one.
Did you say that Tesla wants you to charge the car to 100% once a week? Is that what you
Once
said?
a week with an LFP battery, yes. If your chemistry's
with the
LFP, they do.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
It's because the voltage curve, it spikes up, and then it's so flat that the BMS system starts guessing. And the only way it can know to keep your range estimate accurate is you have to charge it to 100%, because at the end it spikes. And then the vehicle will know that, okay, that's the capacity. There's my range mark. It benchmarks it.
Okay, yeah, I caught that also about a week. I thought that was pretty often, but I don't know. Is it
That,
more that
that's what
the car's built in
Tesla
China?
recommends. We do it
Like
once. We
Tesla?
recommend once a month. So
Yeah, so I think in the Chinese built Teslas, they have more of the LFPs. Yeah.
there are sodium ion batteries they've tested very well. I've also seen Donut Labs solid state as well as Compare Ampere Technologies or CATL's ones, but they're not production yet. Also QuantumScapes. I do not see them in production because I love to say my best laid process mapper design will never survive the first customer, because there's always one random scenario that you never intended it to be used for that they do. And like, for example, cutting the ground pin to use your ground on your Pro Power onboard, because the Lightning uses a floating ground, and trying to power your house that way. We don't recommend. There's a reason male-to-male connectors don't exist. So,
Yeah.
What does he know about solid state battery?
Solid state battery.
solid state batteries so the ones I've seen under testing, they operate in the entire spectrum of negative, I think it was negative 240 degrees all the way to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Zero power degradation. They're safer because you can literally impact them, and the lithium ion won't ignite. They last very well, and you get better range with them, and they're lighter. They're also safer. So that's what I do know. I have not seen any tests or white papers published other than CATL and Donut Labs, but that is where the industry is going. Solid state makes sense for everything. It solves all the problems.
Economics are. I know
Yes.
that they've been used for a long time in pacemakers, but the size that you need for a pacemaker is much, much smaller than what you need in a car. So the economics, I think, are what's going to drive
Absolutely
adoption. Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, think of it this way: the longevity, the use of it, the safety aspect, and the number one range impact. We're in Texas, guys. We don't see it. I got into an EV up here, and it was negative, it was 15 degrees. My range was cut in half until I preconditioned.
Yeah.
So that is eliminated with solid state.
Okay, so I think we need to wrap it up here now and appreciate everything, Omar, that you've taught us about.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
We look forward
I
to
have,
seeing you in person here.
yes, I have more presentations. I just got to scrub them for proprietary and confidential data. So
And we'd like to thank Rice for hosting us here tonight. And we appreciate all the students coming out. It's great to see you. All right, so we'll wrap up our February meeting here and we'll see you in March 12th, second Thursday. Thanks.
bye, everybody.